The story of Mary Jemison isn't a tale left unexplored. Through time and the evolution of storytelling, this occult narrative has been tucked between the cracks and left for the curious to explore the story of how captive migrants were adopted into the New World culture of indigenous tribes. Often, when a family member was killed due to conflict, an Indian tribe would replace their lost family member with another soul who was inhabiting this reality plane of our living existence. If a family member was killed, the Indians would trade blood for blood, often killing for retribution. But if deemed fit for the tribe, they would also adopt the outsider into their own culture and place the lost family member's new avatar back into existence through the spirit of their newfound replacement. This trade for spiritual attachment is what happened to Mary Jemison. Mary Jemison was a Scottish-Irish colonial frontierswoman in Pennsylvania and New York, who became known as the White Woman of Genesee. As a young girl, she was captured and adopted into a Seneca family, assimilating to their culture, marrying two Native American men in succession, and having children with them. In 1824, she published a memoir of her life, a form of captivity narrative. During the French and Indian War in the spring of 1755, Jemison, at the age of 12, was captured with most of her family in a Shawnee raid in what is now known as Adams County, Pennsylvania. The others of her family were killed. She and an unrelated young boy were adopted by the Seneca families. She became fully assimilated, marrying a Delaware Indian and, after his death, a Seneca man. She chose to remain a Seneca rather than return to the American colonial culture. Jemison told her story late in life to an American minister who wrote it for her. He published it as Narrative of the Life of Mrs. Mary Jemison in 1824. It was reprinted in the late 20th century. In 1874, her remains were reinterred near a historic Seneca council house on a private estate in what is now Letchworth State Park. Mary Jemison was born to Thomas and Jane Jemison aboard the ship William and Mary in the fall of 1743, while en route from British Ireland, in today's Northern Ireland, to America. They landed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and joined other Protestant Scottish-Irish immigrants in heading west to settle on cheaper available lands in the backcountry, what was then the western frontier, now central Pennsylvania. They squatted on territory that had been purchased by the Penn family in 1736 from chiefs of the Iroquois Confederacy, 6 nations that were based in central and western New York. The Jemisons had cleared land to develop their farm, and the couple had several children. By 1755, conflicts had started in the French and Indian War, the North American front of the 7 Years' War between France and Britain. Both sides made use of Native American allies, especially in the frontier areas where they had few regular forces. One morning in early 1755, a raiding party consisting of 6 Shawnee Indians and 4 Frenchmen captured Mary. The rest of her family, except 2 older brothers and a young boy from another family. En route to French-controlled Fort Duquesne, present-day Pittsburgh, the Shawnee killed Mary's mother, father, and siblings, and ritually scalped them. Mary later learned that it was a Seneca's custom when one of their own was killed or taken prisoner in battle to take an enemy as prisoner or to take their scalp in a mourning ritual. 2 Seneca women had lost a brother in the French and Indian War a year before Mary's capture, and in this mourning raid, the Shawnee intended to capture a prisoner or obtain an enemy's scalp to compensate them. The 12-year-old Mary and the young boy were spared, likely because they were of suitable age for adoption. Once the party reached Fort Duquesne, Mary was given to the 2 Seneca women, who took her downriver to their settlement. After a short ceremony, a Seneca family adopted Mary, renaming her as Dahawanis. She learned this meant a pretty girl. When she came of age, Mary married a Delaware man named Shenenji, who was living with the band. They had a son whom she named Thomas after her father. Shenenji took her on a 700-mile journey to the Sehequana Valley along the Genesee River in present-day western New York State. Although Jemison and their son reached this destination, her husband did not. While hunting one day on their journey, he was taken ill and died. As a widow, Mary and her child were taken in by Shenenji's clan relatives. She made her home at Little Beardstown. She married again to a Seneca man named Hiekatu, and together they had 6 children: Nancy, Polly, Betsy, Jane, John, and Jesse. John had a troubled life. He killed his brother Thomas in 1811, then killed his brother Jesse in 1812, and was later also killed. During the American Revolutionary War, the Seneca allied with the British, hoping that a British victory would enable them to expel the encroaching colonists. Jemison's account of her life includes observations of this time. She and others in the Seneca town helped supply Joseph Brant, a Mohawk, and his Iroquois warriors from various nations who fought the rebel colonists. After the war, the British ceded their holdings east of the Mississippi River to the United States without consulting their Native American allies. The Seneca were forced to give up their lands to the United States. In 1797, the Seneca sold much of their land at Little Beardstown to Americans. At that time, during negotiations with the Holland Land Company held at Genesee, New York, Mary Jemison proved to be an able negotiator for the Seneca tribe. She helped win more favorable terms for surrendering their rights to the land at the Treaty of Big Tree in 1797. Late in life, Jemison told her story to the minister James E. Seaver, who published it as a narrative of the life of Mrs. Mary Jemison in 1824, the latest edition being printed in 1967. It is considered a classic captivity narrative, although some early readers thought that Seaver must have imposed his own beliefs. Since the late 20th century, many historical scholars have thought the memoir is a reasonably accurate account of Jemison's life, story, and attitude. By staying with the Seneca, she showed that she preferred life with the Seneca to what she had seen of the lives of the colonial British women. In 1823, the Seneca sold most of their remaining land in that area except for a 2-acre tract of land reserved for Jemison's use. Known by local European American residents as the White Woman of Genesee, Jemison lived on the tract of land for several years. In 1831, she sold it and moved to the Buffalo Creek Reservation, where some Seneca lived. Others had gone to Ontario, Canada. Jemison died on September 19, 1833, at the age of 90. She was initially buried on the Buffalo Creek Reservation. Jemison's heirs later changed their surname to Jimerson and established the community of Jimerson Town on the Allegheny Indian Reservation. If you like this video, please consider sharing this with your friends, liking this video, and subscribing to the channel, as I release frontier content weekly. By liking and sharing this content, you help others to have a chance to learn about our great American history. I invite you to check out some of my other videos, including great frontiersmen like Lewis Wetzel and Simon Kenton, and other frontiersmen stories from the past right here on Exploring the American Frontier. Thanks, guys.